Part 1. What emotions are? Have you ever wondered what emotions are and what purpose they serve? In this section, we will discuss how your survival mechanism affects your emotions. Then, we will explain what the ego is and how it impacts your emotions. Finally, we will discover the mechanism behind emotions and learn why negative emotions can be so hard to deal with. How your survival mechanism affects your emotions. Why people have a bias towards negativity. Your brain is designed for survival, which explains why you are able to read this book at this very moment. When you think about it, the probability of you being born was extremely low. For this miracle to happen, all the generations before you had to survive long enough to procreate. In their quest for survival and procreation, they must have faced death hundreds or perhaps thousands of times. Fortunately, unlike your ancestor, you are probably not facing death every day. In fact, in many parts of the world, life has never been safer. Yet, your survival mechanism hasn't changed much. Your brain still scans your environment looking for potential threats. In many ways, some parts of your brain have become obsolete. While you may not be seconds away from being eaten by a predator, your brain still gives significantly more weight to negative events than to positive ones. Fear of rejection is one example of a bias toward negativity. In the past, being rejected from your tribe would reduce your chances of survival significantly. Therefore, you learn to look for any sign of rejection, and this became hardwired in your brain. Nowadays, being rejected often carries little or no consequence to your long term survival. You could be hated by the entire world and still have a job, a roof, and plenty of food on the table. Yet your brain is still programmed to perceive rejection as a threat to your survival. This is why rejection can be so painful. While you know most rejections are no big deal, you nevertheless feel the emotional pain. If you listen to your mind, you may even create a whole drama around it. You may believe you are not worthy of love and dwell on a rejection for days or weeks. Worse still, you may become depressed as a result of this rejection. In fact, one single criticism can often outweigh hundreds of positive ones. That's why an author with 55-star reviews is likely to feel terrible when they receive a single one-star review. While the author understands the one-star review is not a threat to her survival, her authorial brain doesn't. It likely interprets the negative review as a threat to her ego, which triggers an emotional reaction. The fear of rejection can also lead you to over dramatize events. If your boss criticizes you at work, your brain may see the event as a threat and you now think, what if I'm fired? What if I can't find a job quickly enough and my wife leaves me? What about my kids? What if I can't see them again? While you are fortunate to have such an effective survival mechanism, it is also your responsibility to separate real threats from imaginary ones. If you don't, you will experience unnecessary pain and worry that will negatively impact the quality of your life. To overcome this bias towards negativity, you must reprogram your mind. One of a human being's greatest powers is our ability to use our thoughts to shape our reality and interpret events in a more empowering way. This book will teach you how to do this. Why your brain's job isn't to make you happy. Your brain's primary job is not to make you happy, but to ensure your survival. Thus, if you want to be happy, you must take control of your emotions rather than hoping you will be happy because it's your natural state. In the following section, we will discuss what happiness is and how it works. How dopamine can mess with your happiness. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter which, among other functions, plays a major role in rewarding certain behaviors. When dopamine is released into specific areas of your brain, the pleasure centers, you get a high. This is what happens during exercise. When you gamble, have sex, or eat great food. One of the rules of dopamine is to ensure you look for food so you don't die of starvation, and you search for a mate so you can reproduce. Without dopamine, our species would likely be extinct by now. It's a pretty good thing, right? Well, yes and no. In today's world, this reward system is, in many cases, obsolete, while in the past, dopamine was linked to our survival instinct. The release of dopamine can now be generated artificially. A great example of this effect is social media, which uses psychology to suck as much time as possible out of your life. Have you noticed all these notifications that pop up constantly? They are used to trigger a release of dopamine so you stay connected. And the longer you stay connected, the more money the services make. Watching pornography or gambling also leads to a release of dopamine, which can make these activities highly addictive. Fortunately, we don't need to act each time our brain releases dopamine. For instance, we don't need to constantly check our Facebook news feeds just because it gives us a pleasurable shot of dopamine. Today's society is selling a version of happiness that can make us unhappy. We have become addicted to dopamine largely because of marketers who have found effective ways to exploit our brains. We receive multiple shots of dopamine throughout the day and we love it. But is that the same thing as happiness? Worse than that, dopamine can create real addictions with severe consequences on our health. Research conducted at Tulane University showed that when given permission to self-stimulate their pleasure center, participants did it an average of 40 times per minute. They choose the stimulation of their pleasure center over food, even refusing to eat when hungry. Korean Lee Seung-suk is an extreme case of this syndrome. In 2005, Mr. Seub died after playing a video game for 58 hours straight with very little food or water and no sleep. The subsequent investigation concluded the cause of death was heart failure induced by exhaustion and dehydration. He was only 28 years old. To take control of your emotions, it is essential you understand the role dopamine plays and how it affects your happiness. Are you addicted to your phone? Are you glued to your TV? Or maybe you spend too much time playing video games? Most of us are addicted to something. For some people, it's obvious, but for others, it's more subtle. For instance, you could be addicted to thinking to better control your emotions. It's important to shed the light on your addictions as they can rob you of your happiness. The one day I will meet. Do you believe that one day you will achieve your dream and finally be happy? This is unlikely to happen. You may, and I hope you will achieve your dream, but you won't live happily ever after. This is just another trick your mind plays on you. Your mind quickly acclimates to new situations, which is probably the result of evolution and our need to adapt continually in order to survive and reproduce. This is also probably why the new car or house you want will only make you happy for a while. Once the initial excitement wears off, you will move on to crave the next exciting thing. This phenomenon is known as hedonic adaptation. How hedonic adaptation works. Let me share an interesting study that will likely change the way you see happiness. This study, which was conducted on lottery winners and paraplegics, was extremely eye opening for me. Conducted in 1978, the investigation evaluated how winning the lottery or becoming a paraplegic influenced happiness. The study found that 1 year after the event, both groups were just as happy as they were beforehand. Yes, just as happy or unhappy. You can find more about it by watching Dan Gilbert's TED Talk. The surprising signs of happiness here. Perhaps you believe that you will be happy once you have made it. But as the above study on happiness shows, this is simply not true. No matter what happens to you, you will revert back to your predetermined level of happiness once you have adapted to the new event. This is how your mind works. Does that mean you can't be happier than you are right now? No, what is means is that in the long run, external events have very little impact on your level of happiness. In fact, according to Sonja Lyubomirsky, author of The How of Happiness, 50% of our happiness is determined by genetics, 40% by internal factors, and only 10% by external factors. These external factors include such things as whether we are single or married, rich or poor, and similar social influences. This suggests only 10% of your happiness is linked to external factors, which is probably way less than you thought. The bottom line is this: your attitude towards life influences your happiness, not what happens to you. By now, you understand how your survival mechanism impacts negatively your emotions and prevent you from experiencing more joy and happiness in your life. In the next section, we will learn about the ego.